Her dad showed up with lawyers to bully me into fatherhood, but a paternity test proved the kid wasn't mine, it was her dad's top associate. It's the kind of drama that sounds like a soap opera, but it's my life. I'm Logan Reed, a basketball coach for troubled kids at the community center, standing in the gym where the thump of balls and shouts of teens echo like my own past. The fluorescent lights hum, casting shadows that hint at the chaos waiting to unfold. Who knew falling for someone from a different world would lead to betrayal threats and a shot at redemption? It started at a charity game, but the real game was in my heart, pulling me toward a future I thought I wanted until it nearly broke me. I coach basketball for at-risk youth, a job that doesn't pay much but keeps the lights on and lets me make a difference. These kids full of fire and no direction remind me of myself at their age. One I mentored years ago made it to the NBA, still texting me, "Couldn't have done it without you, coach." That keeps me going. My past isn't pretty. Dad left at 7, mom got into trouble, and I bounced through foster homes until 18. Then I lived in my beat-up Ford F-150, bought with money from my high school garage job. That truck was a wreck, but it was mine, a symbol of scraping by. Foster care taught me to pack light and trust sparingly. One foster dad, a mechanic, let me tinker with engines, giving me a sense of control. That skill landed me the garage gig, where grease was my badge of survival. Coaching feels like keeping a promise to my younger self, turning kids' chaos into teamwork. When a kid nails a shot and grins, it's purpose, not just a paycheck. Then there's Natalie. We met at a charity basketball tournament her dad's law firm sponsored. She works there, a job everyone knows Edward, her father, handed her. She'd never checked a bank account before buying anything. "You're a rough diamond," she'd say, so authentic. I fell hard. Her face lit up when I shared stories about my kids. At night, she'd curl up beside me, making me feel I belonged somewhere. That tournament was a sunny day, banners flapping air thick with hot dog smells. I was coaching my center kids when Natalie approached, all confidence in her sundress. We grabbed coffee after her, laughing at my referee jokes, me hooked on her effortless charm. It was like she saw past my struggles, and I let myself believe we could bridge our worlds. My assistant coach Jenna, my ride or die for over a decade, wasn't impressed. We met in community college chasing scholarships. She's like a sister, calling out my nonsense with savage humor that cracks up even the moodiest teens. "That princess never worked for anything," she'd say. "You're the catch, not her." I laughed it off, but her words stuck. Still, I saved for a ring, 3-month salary, modest but honest, tucked in my sock drawer. Jenna and I bonded over late-night study sessions, sharing ramen and dreams. She's tough, but golden, organizing fundraisers for kids' gear. Her warnings about Natalie came from love-spotting red flags I ignored, like Natalie's stories of luxury vacations, worlds from my budgeting reality. I'd brush it off, lost in how Natalie made me feel alive, like I deserved more than just surviving. Our dates mixed my world and hers, park picnics I planned or fancy dinners via her dad's connections. She'd tease my vintage Jeep but listen to my coaching stories, leaning close. It felt real. Jenna's eye rolls and mimicry of Natalie's posh accent had the team in stitches, but she'd warn, hearts aren't basketballs, Logan. I ignored the doubts, dreaming of a life where my coaching and her polish could blend, imagining family outings or teaching our kids to shoot hoops. That hope fueled me even on rough days at the center when funding cuts loomed or a kid showed up bruised. Natalie's enthusiasm felt like a promise, but Jenna's skepticism hinted at a storm I didn't yet see. As I pushed through those doubts, I kept my focus on the future. I was building one paycheck at a time. I'd been scrimping and saving for months, cutting out little luxuries like takeout coffee or new sneakers just to afford that ring. It wasn't some flashy diamond from a high-end jeweler, nothing like what Natalie was probably used to, but it was honest, a simple band with a modest stone that represented 3 months' salary, just like the old advice goes. I hid it in my sock drawer, nestled among mismatched pairs, waiting for the perfect moment to make it official. Every time I glanced at it, a surge of excitement mixed with nerves, like stepping up to the free throw line in a tied game. Natalie had been dropping hints about our future for weeks, subtle at first, but growing bolder. She'd pull up photos on her phone of sprawling houses in upscale neighborhoods, the kind with manicured lawns and 3-car garages that were way beyond my budget, saying things like, "Wouldn't this be perfect for us someday?" Or she'd joke about her biological clock ticking, flashing that playful smile, while asking what our kids might look like, my height, with her eyes maybe. One night, as we lay tangled in the sheets of her plush apartment, the city lights filtering through the blinds like distant stars, I turned to her and asked, "Do you think I'd make a good dad?" She didn't hesitate. "The best," she replied, tracing a finger along my arm. "You're so good with all those kids you coach. Our kids would be lucky." 5 days. Our children, that phrase echoed in my head for days, painting vivid pictures of family barbecues, little ones in jerseys learning to dribble a life where my past struggles turned into stories of triumph shared around the dinner table. Those moments made the class divide feel bridgeable, like maybe her world of privilege and mine of perseverance could merge into something stronger. I'd imagine us tag-teaming parenthood me, teaching the basics of resilience through sports here, showing them the finer things with that effortless grace. It fueled my determination, pushing me to pick up extra shifts at the center or even freelance coaching gigs on weekends. Jenna noticed, of course, ribbing me during practice about my secret squirrel savings. She'd say, "You're glowing like a guy who's about to drop a knee, don't let her talk you into a mansion mortgage." Her teasing was laced with concern, but I waved it off, too wrapped up in the dream to see the cracks forming. I started planning to propose during my friend Zach's engagement party. I thought it would be fun to honor two couples starting their lives together, a double celebration that felt poetic. Zach was thrilled when I ran it by him over a quick beer after work, slapping me on the back and saying he'd hand me the mic right after his toast. The party was set at a luxury rooftop bar downtown, the kind of place where the menu doesn't even list prices, because if you have to ask, you can't afford it. His fiancée comes from a wealthy family, so the venue was packed with folks who casually drop terms like summer in the Hamptons or winter in Aspen, as if they're discussing the weather. I felt out of place from the moment we arrived, tugging at the collar of my one nice suit, the same one I pull out for funerals or rare job interviews, while Natalie glided through the crowd like she owned it, her dress shimmering under the string lights, that phony laugh of hers echoing like something from a rom-com. The rooftop air was crisp, carrying hints of expensive perfumes and cigar smoke from the elite mingling below the skyline. Champagne flutes clinked and waiters in crisp uniforms weaved through with trays of hors d'oeuvres I couldn't pronounce. "Man, you look like you're having about as much fun as a cat in a bathtub," Jenna observed, sidling up to me in her plain black dress, her girlfriend off networking somewhere in the throng. "Need a rescue?" she inquired, eyeing my discomfort. "Nah, I'm fine. Just people watching." I patted the tiny box in my pocket, the ring's weight a comforting reminder. "Think tonight's the night?" Jenna's eyes grew big. "You're serious tonight?" "Zach's cool with it. Said he'd let me borrow the mic after the toast." "Well, damn!" Jenna exclaimed. "Are you sure about this? There's no return policy on proposals." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the vibration cutting through the chatter like a warning. It was one of my center kids having a breakdown at home. His dad had fallen off the wagon again, the kind of crisis that hits hard and fast. "I've got to step out and take this," I told Jenna. "Cover for me." "Always do, boss." The call dragged on longer than expected, about 20 minutes of talking the kid down, reassuring him it wasn't his fault, and promising to pick him up for practice tomorrow so he could escape for a bit. The night air cooled my face as I paced the sidewalk below, the party's muffled sounds drifting down like a distant dream. By the time I headed back up, I wove through the quieter edges of the venue to dodge small talk with strangers, my mind replaying the proposal in my head. That's when I heard Natalie's laughter, sharp and familiar, floating from a small lounge area tucked away. It stopped me cold, that sound pulling me toward what I never expected to uncover. Natalie's laughter sliced through the hum of the party, drawing me closer to the lounge area like a moth to a flame. I stopped just out of sight, tucked behind a velvet curtain, my heart thudding as I caught snippets of her conversation with her coworkers from her dad's firm. "So when will Loverboy pop the question?" one guy asked, his voice slick with amusement. "You've been with him, what, a couple years now?" There was a pause, heavy as the ring box in my pocket. Natalie's voice dropped to a stage whisper, the kind you use when you're saying something you know is wrong. "God, can you imagine? Me married to Logan. Please." My stomach lurched like I'd been punched in the gut. The ring felt like it was burning a hole through my jacket, branding me as the fool I'd been. "But you guys seem good together, a woman maybe?" Melissa chimed in. "He's cute in that rugged way." Natalie's laugh was sharp-cutting. "Oh, he's just a phase, Melissa. A detour like when you went vegan for 3 months." Laughter erupted around her, each chuckle a jab at my life. Don't get me wrong, he's sweet, great in bed, and all that stuff about growing up in foster care and living in his truck makes for such good stories at dinner parties. People eat that stuff up. Look at me dating outside my social circle. So progressive. My hands shook the air in my lungs, turning stale. Her voice grew colder, calculated. But marriage material. Come on. The man's a basketball coach for troubled kids. He drives a 10-year-old Jeep. He shops at outlets. What would we even talk about at charity galas? How he taught some project kid to dribble today? More laughs, each one stripping away the future I'd built in my head. My dad would lose it if I brought Logan home as fiancé material. She continued, her tone dripping with disdain. Can you imagine the prenup discussions? So, Mr. Reed, what assets do you bring, your hoodie collection and basketball sneakers? The group roared, their mockery echoing in my skull. I stood frozen, the rooftops' glitz fading to a dull hum, my world narrowing to her words. So, what's your endgame? Someone asked. Natalie sighed, theatrical. I don't know. It's been fun, different, but time to get serious. There's that new senior partner Brandon divorced, no kids summer house in Martha's Vineyard. Dad's been pushing me to have drinks with him. That was it. The ring box felt like a lead weight dragging me down. I turned and walked out past the clinking glasses and fake smiles, not bothering to find Jenna or say goodbye to Zach. I just left. Outside, the city's pulse felt distant, the neon signs blurring as I fumbled for my phone. I texted Jenna. Something came up with one of the kids. Had to go. Tell Zach I'm sorry. Then I blocked Natalie's number, my fingers moving on autopilot. The drive home was a haze, my Jeep's familiar rumble no comfort against the replay of her words in my head. At my apartment, I sat in the dark, the ring box on the coffee table like a relic of a life I'd misread. Jenna's warnings, the ones I'd laughed off, now screamed truth. I'd been a museum piece to Natalie, a story to tell, not a partner to build with. The betrayal wasn't just her words, it was how I'd let myself believe in us, ignoring the signs. I thought of the kids I coach, how I tell them to face hard truths head on. Now it was my turn. By the time dawn broke, painting my walls with gray light, I'd made a choice. No confrontation, no begging for explanations. I was done. Natalie's calls came through unknown numbers, her emails piling up in my work inbox pleading for answers. I deleted them all, her voice fading to static. She showed up at my door, knocking, crying, but I watched through the peephole, silent, letting the TV drown her out. Jenna called it ice cold, but it wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting what little I had left, my dignity, my heart, my future. The days after the party blurred into a haze of silence and routine, my apartment a fortress where I shut out the world. I turned off my phone's notifications, deleted my social media apps, and told the community center I needed personal time, citing vague family issues. The kids didn't need to see me like this, half a man nursing a wound I couldn't name. My world shrank to the hum of the fridge, the creak of my couch, and the occasional thud of a basketball from the court outside my window, each bounce a reminder of the life I was avoiding. Natalie's betrayal replayed in my mind like a bad highlight reel, her words slicing deeper each time, mocking my job, my Jeep, my entire existence. I'd been so sure of her that the truth felt like a rug pulled out from under me, leaving me flat on my back, staring at the ceiling of my own stupidity. Jenna was the only one I let in. She showed up the morning after the party, pushing past me with a pizza box, her eyes scanning my face like a coach sizing up an injured player. What happened? She asked, dropping onto my couch. You look like absolute garbage. I told her everything. Natalie's laughter, her cruel words about my life being a phase, a dinner party anecdote. Jenna listened, her usual quips absent, which was rarer than a perfect game. When I finished, she leaned forward, elbows on her knees. That freaking snake, she said, her voice low and fierce. She grabbed her phone, ready to dial. I'm calling her right now. I snatched it from her hand. No, Jenna. I'm done. Just done. She squinted at me. What do you mean? I mean I'm not fighting, not explaining, not giving her the satisfaction of seeing me hurt. I'm just gone. She gave me a long look, then nodded. Ghost protocol. I respect it. But Natalie didn't make it easy. My phone buzzed with texts from unknown numbers here trying to get through after I blocked her. Emails hit my work inbox. Logan, please talk to me. Why did you leave the party? Why aren't you answering? This isn't like you. I deleted them without reading further, each one a jab I refused to feel. Then she showed up at my door knocking, calling my name, her voice cracking as she sank to the hallway floor. I watched through the peephole, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. 2 hours later, she left, her sobs echoing down the stairwell. I turned up the TV, drowning out the sound, feeling nothing but a dull ache where love used to be. Jenna found it hilarious in her own way. Ice cold read. Ice cold, she said the next day at the center, tossing a basketball between her hands. I'm with you all the way, she showed her true colors. Screw her and the designer horse she rode in on. Her face lit up with that savage satisfaction, like she'd been waiting years to say it without me defending Natalie. I managed a weak smile, but inside I was still piecing myself together, trying to remember who I was before her. Slowly, I started showing up at the center again, easing back into drills and pep talks. The kids didn't ask where I'd been, they just swarmed me with high fives, their energy pulling me out of my head. One afternoon, a kid named Marcus, all elbows and attitude, nailed his first layup and looked at me like I'd handed him the moon. That's when I knew I'd survive this. Natalie's world, her galas, her polished lies couldn't touch what I had here. But the quiet moments still stung, especially at night when I'd lie awake, the ring still in my sock drawer like a ghost I couldn't bury. I started running again, pounding the pavement at dawn, the city waking up around me with delivery trucks and coffee shop lights. Each step felt like shaking off her words, reclaiming the guy who'd fought through foster care and a beat-up truck to get here. Jenna dragged me to trivia nights at our old dive bar, forcing me to laugh at her terrible puns over cheap beer. You're not allowed to mope forever, she'd say, tossing a pretzel at me. You're Logan freaking Reed. You've got too much game for that. Her faith in me was a lifeline pulling me back to myself, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. Natalie wasn't done with me yet, and her next move would hit harder than anything I'd heard at that party. I was just starting to feel like I could breathe again, like the pieces of my life were slotting back into place, when I came home from grocery shopping and found an ultrasound photo pinned to my door. Tucked beneath it was a note in Natalie's tidy handwriting. We need to talk. I'm 8 weeks along. Please call me. For a moment, the hallway tilted, the grocery bags cutting into my fingers as I stared at the grainy black and white image, a baby. The word felt foreign, heavy, like a basketball I didn't know how to dribble. I did the math in my head. 8 weeks ago was late March when Natalie was in D.C. for a law conference. I'd driven her to the airport myself, her suitcase stuffed with designer heels. The timeline didn't add up, and that mismatch lit a spark of suspicion in my gut. I took the ultrasound and note inside, set the groceries on the counter, and called her, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. She answered on the first ring. Logan, thank God, I've been so worried. Her voice was all urgency, like she'd been pacing. The ultrasound. Is it real? I asked, cutting to the point. Of course it's real, she snapped, defensive. I wouldn't lie about something like that. I'm pregnant, Logan. We're having a baby. I leaned against the counter, the cold edge grounding me. When exactly did this happen? Because according to this, you got pregnant in D.C. Silence stretched thick and telling. That's, just an estimate, she stammered. The doctor said it could be 6 to 10 weeks, you know? My voice stayed calm unnervingly. So, well, regardless, it's none of my business. What do you mean? She shot back, her pitch rising. If I'm pregnant, it's your business. I took a breath. Her words from the party echoing like a bad echo. See, that's the thing. You made it clear at Zach's party, I'm just a phase, not marriage material. A detour, you said. So whatever's going on with you, that's your problem, not mine. She gasped, a choked sob breaking through. You heard that? Oh my God, Logan, I didn't mean it. I was just trying to fit in with those people. No, Natalie, I cut in. I don't know your world. I'm just a basketball coach for troubled kids. Remember? Please, can we talk in person? I have something to show you. Something that proves how I really feel. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet at a coffee shop, a neutral spot where I could walk away if it turned sour. I told myself I just needed closure to see the lie in her eyes and move on for good. She was already there when I arrived, looking unlike herself. Hair messy, no makeup, just sweatpants and a sweater instead of her usual polished outfits. Thank you for coming, she said, sliding a mug my way. Black coffee, 2 sugars. I didn't touch it. You said you had something to show me. She pulled a leather-bound journal from her bag, opening it to a bookmarked page. I've been keeping this for a year. Read it. The handwriting was neat feminine. One entry read, Logan and I saw a movie tonight with a family scene. He said he'd love to coach his own kids someday, talking like it's a when, not an if. I've always said kids would ruin my career, but tonight I pictured a boy with Logan's laugh learning to dribble, or a girl with his patience. For the first time, being a mom doesn't scare me. I flipped through more dates, my job dreams of a house together, all painting a picture of love. This is the real me, she said softly. Not what you heard at the party. I closed the journal, sliding it back. Why say those things if you didn't mean them? Her voice broke. Because I'm a coward. I've spent my life trying to be what my dad wants. Those people at the firm, their approval matters to me even if I hate it. The journal's the truth. She rushed on, and the ultrasound's real. The dates must be off. You know how it is. I didn't, but I nodded. I need time to process, I said, standing. She reached for my hand. I pulled back. Take all the time you need, she said, eyes pleading. Just don't shut me out. There's a baby now. That night, I called Zach. Did Natalie say anything about me after I left the party? He hesitated. She was drunk man making jokes about your job imitating you. Then she was all over some guy in a suit think he works at her dad's firm. They left together. The journal felt too perfect, too staged. Something wasn't right and I was done being played. The journal gnawed at me, its tidy pages too neat like a script written to pull me back in. I called Jenna that night, needing her sharp take to cut through the fog. Hey, I need to pick your brain, I said, pacing my apartment, the city's hum seeping through the window. Shoot, she replied, her voice crisp over the line. I told her about the coffee shop, the ultrasound, and Natalie's journal supposedly filled with a year's worth of love notes about our future. A journal, Jenna snorted. Seriously? Yeah, leather-bound, all about how she loves me, wants kids, the whole deal. I paused. Did you ever see her with something like that? Or mention keeping one? A long pause. I'm breaking girl code here, Logan, but you deserve the truth. I've been around Natalie plenty, grabbing her phone from her bag, whatever. Never saw a journal, never heard her mention one. My grip tightened on the phone. You think she's lying, Logan? I could fake a journal in 2 days, buy a nice book, smudge some mascara, use different pens. She's panicking, probably about being a single mom. Jenna's words hardened my resolve, but before I could process further, a sharp knock hit my door, forceful, like it meant business. I opened it to find Edward, Natalie's father, in a tailored suit, flanked by 2 men who screamed lawyer with their slick ties and smug faces. Logan. Edward said, voice cold, as a winter morning, we need to talk. He didn't wait for an invite, striding into my living room like he owned it, his cronies trailing. Nice apartment, he said, eyeing my second-hand couch with barely hidden disdain. Cozy. I didn't offer seats. Let's skip the small talk. What do you want? Edward adjusted his tie, a tick I'd noticed when he was about to flex power. I understand my daughter is pregnant with your child. We're here to discuss how to handle this situation. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Interesting way to describe your grandchild. The ferret-faced lawyer stepped forward. Mr. Grant is concerned about his daughter and the unborn child's welfare. Given your financial circumstances, we've drafted preliminary paperwork, child support visitation. The other chimed in, it's to ensure clarity. I almost laughed. And if I don't sign, Edward's voice dropped. Custody battles are costly, Logan. Legal fees add up. Your coaching salary might not stretch far. Ferretface added, background checks for those working with children are thorough. Issues could raise flags. The threat hung heavy, but I kept my cool, grabbing a glass of water for myself, offering them nothing. Here's my parameter, I said, voice steady. Paternity test before anything else. Edward's face flushed. That's insulting to my daughter, less insulting than you 3 showing up with threats, I shot back. Paternity test or no conversation. I sipped my water, letting the silence stretch. You can't seriously think Edward started, but I cut him off. The ultrasound says 8 weeks. She was in DC then. I drove her to the airport. I've got the receipt. The room went still, Edward's eyes narrowing. And I have evidence the baby might belong to someone else. A colleague of yours. Right then, Jenna walked in, dropping her bag on the counter. Oh, damn, a lawyer convention, she said, grinning. Did I miss the free pens? Ferret face bristled. This is private. Not really, Jenna replied, flopping onto the couch. I'm Logan's counsel here. Not an attorney, just a woman who doesn't like seeing good guys screwed over by rich jerks. Edward looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Listen here. No, you listen, I interrupted. Natalie takes a paternity test. If the baby's mine, we talk. Until then, nothing. I bluffed. I've got texts from her colorful stuff about people's backgrounds. Wonder how your firm's partners would feel about that. Edward's jaw tightened. One lawyer whispered to him. Fine, he said finally. A paternity test, but at our family doctor's. No way, Jenna cut in. Independent lab, separate appointments unless you're planning to fake results too. I shot her a look, but she shrugged. Independent lab's fine, I agreed. Tomorrow. They left Edward's parting words heavy. If you're the father, you'll do right by my daughter. Jenna whistled as the door closed. Man, you were ice in your veins. I slumped onto the couch exhausted. Just playing the long game. The test results came a week later, confirming what I'd suspected, not mine. The father was Brandon Edwards' junior partner. I stared at the email feeling hollow, not victorious, just empty. 2 years with someone who saw me as a novelty, a stepping stone. Edward called later, his voice weary, asking to meet alone. I agreed, sensing the fight was over, but I wasn't ready for what he'd say next. The paternity test results sat in my inbox like a closed chapter, but the story wasn't over. Edward called, his voice stripped of its usual arrogance, asking to meet at a park downtown. No lawyers, no Natalie. I agreed, curious but guarded, and found him on a bench looking older. The lines on his face etched deeper under the midday sun. Natalie confirmed it, he said, staring at a group of kids playing pickup basketball nearby. The father's Brandon Ellis, a junior partner at the firm. They hooked up after your friend's engagement party. I leaned back, the wooden slats creaking under me. Funny she called him a senior partner that night. Even her lies come with a promotion. Edward didn't smile. I owe you an apology, Logan. I came to your home with threats based on her lie. That was wrong. Yeah, it was, I said, meeting his gaze. He rubbed his temples, looking like a man carrying too much weight. I believed her. She's my daughter. What happens now? I asked, not out of care, but needing to close the door. Brandon's been asked to resign, he said. The firm can't afford the scandal. Natalie will have support, but there are consequences for her actions. I nodded, watching the kids on the court, their laughter a sharp contrast to the heaviness between us. You handled this with dignity, Edward added. Surprising me. I misjudged you. He extended a hand. I shook it briefly. Take care of your daughter and your grandkid. That's what matters. I stood ready to move on, and that's exactly what I did. Word spread fast in our small city. Zach over beers one night filled me in on the fallout. Dude, Natalie got evicted from her fancy apartment, he said, grinning. Edward froze. Her accounts took her car, told her to face reality for once. She's living with her aunt in that rough part of town her dad hates. Poetic, I suppose. Her Instagram went dark. No more curated posts about living her truth. Brandon didn't fare better, blackballed from every decent law firm in the state. He's now pushing papers in Omaha, scraping by to cover child support. I didn't stick around to watch the wreckage. That ring money, once a symbol of a future that never was, became the seed for something real. Jenna and I pooled our savings and leased a small shop near the community center, turning it into our youth basketball academy. It was bare bones at first, used hoops, scuffed floors, but it was ours. Then my old mentee, the NBA kid, got wind of it. He called, voice booming with excitement, offering to back us with funding and his name. Suddenly we had new equipment, media buzzing, and kids signing up faster than we could print waivers. The academy became a beacon not just for troubled youth, but for anyone who saw value in what we were building. I even treated myself to a new Jeep Wrangler Midnight Blue, the first new car I'd ever owned. The smell of fresh leather and the hum of a reliable engine felt like a promise kept to the kid who'd lived in his truck. One afternoon, I ran into Natalie at the grocery store, her baby strapped to her chest in a carrier, her beat-up Honda parked next to my Jeep. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stepped out wearing an Academy polo and jeans that actually fit. Her eyes widened at the car, then flicked to me. She started talking how her dad cut her off, how no one would hire her because of the rumors how waitressing tips barely covered rent. I nodded, said, "That's tough," and walked away not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to say. Jenna, helping me load groceries, smirked. "Cold as ice, Reed." "Not cold," I corrected, tossing a bag of apples into the trunk. "Just done." The academy kept growing, pulling me into a rhythm of purpose. We hired Tyrell, one of my first kids from the center, as a coach. He'd come a long way from the angry teen who'd barely make eye contact, and now he was teaching kids to pivot like pros. Parents from wealthier neighborhoods started enrolling their kids drawn by our story, mine, Jenna's, the programs. It wasn't about being a legend, as Jenna teased, but about building something honest. The betrayal, the lies, the threats, they'd all led here to a life I hadn't dared dream of back when I was saving for that ring. As I locked up the academy one evening, the neon sign flickering above the door, I realized the pain had been a strange kind of gift, pushing me to where I was always meant to be. Part 8. The academy's sign glowed above the entrance, casting a soft light on the sidewalk as I locked up after another packed day. Kids' laughter still echoed in my head, their energy a reminder of why I kept going. I'd come a long way from that night at the rooftop bar, the sting of Natalie's words now a distant ache like a bruise you only notice when you press it. Life had moved on, and so had I, building something real with Jenna and the kids. But the past has a way of creeping back, and it did when Edward called asking to meet for coffee. "I have a proposition," he said, his voice quieter than I remembered, almost humble. Curiosity got the better of me, so I agreed, choosing a diner he'd never set foot in, otherwise its formica tables and coffee-stained mugs a far cry from his world. He was already there when I arrived, looking out of place in his pressed suit, the diner's fluorescent buzz clashing with his polished demeanor. "I've been watching your academy," he said, sliding a check across the table. The number made my eyes widen. A scholarship fund for underprivileged kids, enough to change lives. "No strings attached," he added, sensing my hesitation. "Why?" I asked, not touching the check. He sighed, looking older, worn. "Let's say I'm reevaluating priorities. I see value where I missed it before." I took the check, not for me, but for the kids, knowing it could mean new uniforms, better gear, maybe even a bus for away games. "Thanks," I said, keeping it brief. He nodded, and we parted ways. No handshake this time, just a mutual understanding that the past was done. Word of Natalie's downfall spread like wildfire, though I never said a word. Gossip travels fast in a small city. Parents at the academy whispered about Edward's daughter, evicted, cut off waitressing to make ends meet. Some even sent their kids to our program, drawn by the story of a coach who stood up to a big-shot lawyer and came out on top. "You're becoming a legend, Reed," Jenna teased one day, hammering a new hoop into place. Suburban moms are all about the basketball coach who took down Edward Grant. I laughed it off, not trying to be a legend, just running a decent program. But the attention didn't hurt. 25 kids signed up in our first month, with more calling daily. Tyrell, our new coach, was a natural, his old defiance now channeled into teaching kids footwork with a grin. One night, I met the city's youth program director at a small Italian restaurant to discuss a partnership. Through the window, I saw Natalie waiting tables, balancing plates, her face tired but softer, less polished. Our eyes met briefly. I gave a small nod, not gloating, just acknowledging. She looked away, disappearing into the kitchen. I didn't feel joy at her struggle, just a quiet sense of balance. She was rebuilding from nothing like I had my whole life, but I'd never torn someone down to do it. Jenna, catching me staring, nudged me. "Ever think what might have happened if you didn't overhear her that night?" I shrugged. "Sometimes. But the truth always comes out. Better sooner than later." She laughed. "Look at you, all wise. Next, you'll be growing a beard and meditating on a mountain." "Nah," I grinned. "Just a guy who knows where he belongs." The academy became my anchor, surrounded by people who saw me for me: Jenna, Tyrell, the kids, even Edward, in his own way. I still think about Natalie, not with anger, but a distant clarity, like looking at a photo from a life you've outgrown. She's in a studio apartment now, raising her kid, walking to work in worn shoes. Part of me hopes she figures it out for the child's sake, not hers. That ring, once hidden in my sock drawer, turned into the academy the best thing I've ever done. I'm done letting others define my worth. The kids see me, Jenna sees me, I see myself. Not bad for a guy who lived in his truck. As the diner's lights dimmed, I sipped my coffee, the warmth spreading through me like a slow sunrise. The city hummed outside a soft rhythm of lives moving forward. I thought of the kids tomorrow, their eager faces, the court waiting. Pain had carved this path, but it led somewhere true. I wasn't chasing anyone's approval anymore, just building step by steady step a life that felt like home. And as I walked to my Jeep, the midnight blue gleaming under the streetlights, I let the past fade, a whisper lost in the night. The coffee cup sat empty, the diner's hum fading, as I stepped into the cool night, my Jeep's engine, a steady pulse beneath the city's quiet song. Natalie's betrayal, once a jagged wound, now feels like a distant echo, softened by time and purpose. I see her sometimes pushing a stroller, her face etched with the weight of choices made. I don't wish her ill. Her child deserves better than that. A chance at a life untainted by her mistakes. The academy thrives, its courts alive with kids who remind me of my younger self, their dreams raw but reachable. Jenna's laughter. Tyrell's steady presence. The unexpected respect from Edward, they ground me, weaving a family I never expected. That ring meant for a future that wasn't mine, seeded something greater, a place where kids find direction, where I found myself. The pain of her words, her lies, carved a path I didn't see coming, but it led here to mornings filled with purpose and nights free of doubt. I drive home, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold, and feel the weight of my own worth steady as the road beneath me, carrying me forward into a life I built quiet and true.